I don't think there's a more exciting time in our industry than today than we've seen in the last, seriously, 10 or 15 years. For some people, it's scary. For those who understand the opportunity, they should welcome it with open arms, and we are doing that. The reason why it's so exciting is because we now actually know what content is working, what environments are working, how to drive better business outcomes, and how to optimize against that. So when you talk about context and content, the consumer is now at the center than ever before. And with the consumer at the center than ever before, we know more about that consumer than ever before, what they consume, how much they consume, where they consume it, the types of content that they consume, how much do they tune in, how attentive are they? So with that, we're able to better target environments that we want to invest our clients' money in. And then because of real-time attribution and real-time data that tells us if we're driving a desired outcome, we can then optimize against those media investments in real time and get smarter and smarter and smarter and more effective in terms of a cost per outcome. And that's the world that we're living in today. It used to be bring a lot of people to the screen, mass audiences, reach as many people as you can, and that was success. And today, success is not so much about mass reach. Today, success is about mass effectiveness. And mass effectiveness does not necessarily mean mass reach. It means return on investment. That's the world we're living in today.
And you have actually a part of your business that's really dedicated to performance, don't you?
Well, I think that myself and any of my competitors out there today, years ago, it was all about building brand, and you still need to build brand today. And then demand came into place. And today it's really about building demand overnight and brand over time. And we all have, and that's all about performance. Now, how you integrate that performance into your organization, and the key there is speed to market, speed for decision-making, able to pivot quickly and real-time iterations. That's the secret sauce in terms of success and failure in today's marketplace. So I think it's more about integration. It's not so much about who's won the arms race. I think we're kind of all there. It's about talent. It's about how you use the data. It's about speed to market. It's about getting a lot smarter, because it's not just about media optimization. You now have enough data to also incorporate business optimization into those tools and technologies. And that's the next frontier that I'm extremely excited about. Obviously, driven by great content, being able to reach audiences where they're engaged and where they're involved, and marrying that with the ability to actually count a business outcome is the art in today's world.
Bill, and finally, I wanted to ask you about the TV business. You've been following it closely, and it's been an incredible, tumultuous time with all the majors investing, buying, going streaming. What's happening in terms of ad-supported streaming? What works for you? What would you like to see improve? What advice do you have for programmers around streaming and around their linear product?
Yeah, it's interesting, Andy. You talk about tumultuous time. When you think about it, you think about, I think about the big four: NBC, Viacom, Disney, Fox. Discovery obviously is in that realm now. Warner is obviously in that bucket. So it's not just the big four. But over the last 4 or 5 years, when you think about the amount of money that has been spent by these organizations, driving people away from their linear platforms to their streaming platforms, because they've all launched their streaming platforms, Disney Plus and Disney Plus, Peacock, obviously HBO Max, Paramount Plus. They've all launched these platforms and spent an enormous amount of money telling consumers to sign up. So there's no, first of all, if anybody is surprised about the delineation and loss of traditional linear ratings, I don't know where they've been living for all these years, because there's been billions spent driving people away from traditional television to these AVOD and SVOD platforms. So with regard to, so one, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we can now reach the traditional linear viewer on these AVOD platforms, and we've been very successful in doing that. And these AVOD platforms are growing more and more in terms of subscribers. From a linear TV perspective, what I would like to see, and by the way, when you talk about linear TV, you look at the success that Viacom just had with Yellowstone. I think it was the biggest number in the history of a drama on a cable network. Don't know if my numbers are exactly right, but it's a wild success in terms of driving viewership on a linear TV platform. But what I would love to see, and if you look at the way the traditional linear networks are programmed today, and the broadcast networks and the cable networks, it's kind of the same way that they were structured, back 15, 20, 30 years ago. You have an hour drama, you have a half-hour comedy, you got a pod and a break. I would love to see significantly more innovation and experimentation in terms of what things look like on the screen from a format perspective, from a consumer engagement perspective. And by the way, Andy, I don't have the answer as to what that might be, but I would love to see someone completely break the mold and try something uniquely different with the amount of inventory and the presence that they have in homes and in consumers every day and every night, and try something radically different. So one, I'd like to see that. And I'm happy to brainstorm with any of them to think about what that might look like. I think the second thing, and I find this a really interesting phenomenon. Did you watch Squid Games?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you watch Squid Games. Who in a million years, by the way, would have thought that Squid Games had the success that it had? And my guess is that if someone went back and did a whole huge data deep dive with regards to a whole bunch of interesting triggers of culture and people and consumers and content, and I don't think this was done when Squid Games was created, someone probably would have come up with the idea of that Squid Games format being a wild success. So I think there's a lot more innovative use of data today to tell us what the next Squid Games might be. And I know that in the creative world and in that artistic environment, a lot of it's gut and a lot of it is understanding culture. But I actually believe that through the use of data and triggers and cultural moments and where the world is going, there could be more hits developed in the future based on using that data. And we're working actually on a practice that may be of service to a whole bunch of content providers that would marry data, content, understanding human behavior with potential product out in the content marketplace.